SC Media and our sponsor, Pantera, are proud to present this month's CISO Stories program. This is a show where CISOs share tales from the trenches and unpack leadership lessons learned along the way. Find this month's CISO Stories content at CISOstoriespodcast.com. Are you a cyber professional who enjoys writing policy documents or building checklists or creating documents from scratch? Do you have endless amounts of time and money to focus on developing tools and templates, or would you rather do the work of protecting your organization? The Cyber Risk Collaborative has developed new resource toolkits, which are CISO developed and topic curated guidance, tools, and templates to save your team tens of thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours of work. Visit CISOstoriespodcast.com/CRC to sign up for the community and get your toolkits. Greetings, everyone. Welcome back for another month's episode of CISO Stories podcast. You got myself, Jess Hoffman, as your host today, joined by the wonderful guests we have in our presence for Cloud Security Month, Yogi. What's up, Yogi? How you doing, girl?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Amazing. I'm so excited to have you on the show, coming from us from the Bay Area. How is it hot out there? What's going on in the Bay Area?
It's going to be hot over the weekend. It's pretty cool right now, so pretty nice. Good weather.
Yeah, you get that nice chill weather from the ocean. I love it from the Bay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I know it's a little early out there for you, so thanks for waking up and joining us. As I mentioned, this month's theme is cloud security, and you have a lot of experience in the cloud security or cloud realm period over your career. Looks like you started at E&Y. I saw that. Okay, shout out. I feel like those big the top 10, the top 5, we learned so much from them.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And now you're a founder in the cloud space. So let's get into it. You want to tell a little bit more about yourself?
Well, yeah, I started my journey very early on, 1996. Did a lot of fuss, because it was that early. Dating myself a little bit, but that's all right. In the space of cybersecurity, you need wisdom and a lot of experience, a variety of it. So that's what I have, from EY to Oracle to being head of security multiple times, and practitioner through and through. Now trying to solve a problem as a founder.
Yes, I love that. I feel like I heard a quote recently, we work to serve and work to give. So we have to put in time to do the work in order to be able to give back,
Gosh,
as you're
beautiful.
doing now as a
Yeah.
practitioner. I thought that was great too,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the current geopolitical climate that's going on. I mean, by the time this episode drops, who knows what's going to be going on. But all week personally in my day to day, and well, more than just day to day, right? Security doesn't stop. But certainly this week we've been talking a lot about the potential and imminent attacks that we could face from the conflict going on between us and Iran and in Israel, particularly from a cybersecurity perspective, obviously.
Of
So,
course.
I wanted to pick your brain, get your opinion, what you think right now with the rising tensions that are going on and adversary states such as Iran. Obviously, we have others too, so this isn't necessarily something new we face, right? Having our head on a swivel from these nation states. But as from a CSP, cloud security engineer, security specialist for the cloud, what are some of the things that you've been talking about this week and that you can share with our listeners as far as, being ready for any potential attacks?
Oh my God, it is shields up time. What a question. I loved it when you suggested this. Like, yeah, this is a great question, Jessica, and a great way to start because we are in the thick of it. It is shields up time for cybersecurity. However, it's also time for business uncertainty. And that mixture raises the cyber risk exponentially. It's a double whammy. Because with this business uncertainty, we are not going to see budgets increase. It will be stagnating, maybe even going down. So geopolitical risks are not are adding to this craziness that our boards and executives are grappling with right now. They have to deal with survival, they have to deal with doing more with less. So, how do we, in turn, help them do more with less? Is the question. So, that's the challenge of the day, given the geopolitical risks and the business uncertainties. So, I would like to say, and this is where I think one quote, just like you, I am inspired by quotes. And the best quote that comes to mind today that matches this scenario is what is said by Grace Hopper. And I admire that lady, uh, ex-US Navy admiral there. She and creator of and the mother of the modern day programming languages. In fact, so the most, as she used to say, the most dangerous statement right now is we have always done it this way. And I
Um,
think never before is this statement so true in this scenario. It's a double whammy, it shields up, but also the business uncertainties mean we have to do more with less. So we have to give businesses the agility. So we can't be reactive anymore. So long cybersecurity is very reactive. We have to start looking into how we can be proactive in a way, and that too, in a way that gives businesses the agility, this ability to survive and thrive in these uncertainties with the cost efficiency that they need so much. So that is what we need to bring the proactiveness back because it shields up time, but also do it with the efficiency and effectiveness that businesses need right now.
So interesting. From what you just said, I took away that we have to be agile, right, and be able to respond, but also being proactive. I'm assuming, with basic cyber hygiene, right, those type of things. But you also mentioned about budget wise that some of these organizations, maybe some of your clients that are small business, medium businesses, they might not have a budget that they can pull from right away to maybe implement an additional tool to have advisories or alerts specifically to what's going on in our political climate right now. And I've actually saw somebody ask that question too, because even governments, right? You have a budget that's approved for 1 year. How do you get additional funding to support and be able to respond to an unforeseen, more or less, event that took place that now you're responsible for combating against. So, in that regards, like, is there some advice that you can additional advice how individuals listening that have those similar situations and challenges can work with their executive leaders, work with their finance in order to get the support and get them to understand, like, we got to be able to respond to these things quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of things we need to looking at consolidation of some of our tool sets. What is the biggest bang for the buck? Staying reactive in the same old way that we used to, with the same old tools that we used to, is not going to cut it, right? Because we have been detecting issues. We know that those issues never get resolved, specifically in the sphere of cloud. And AI now is in cloud, correct? So and AI feeds on data. So the risk is only increasing, and with geopolitics in the mix, it's even increasing even more. So how do we make sure that we are actually not, how do we stop these issues, right? The goal is to prevent these issues, because that is going to give us the biggest ROI. If we can prevent these hundreds of misconfigurations that we see, for example, in cloud. So, how do we prevent that? And what comes to mind very immediately, but there are challenges associated with it, and we will talk about that, is secure by design, right? That does come to mind, but how the question is, first let's understand what it is. It's a little misunderstood term, but why and how for it. So, I,
Yeah, and good segue. I know that's something that you hold near and dear to your heart, secure by design, and what that actually means for modern day cloud environments, and shifting left, what does that mean? So yeah, let's talk about that for a little bit. I think as far as what we're facing right now within the world, and let's be honest, there's when you're in security, I don't think I've never have really any boring weeks. So, being able to to pivot and be agile and be proactive, as you mentioned, which I think we're doing better as an industry too. And also cloud service providers such as Amazon and Azure and Google, Salesforce, Oracle, the ones who have been in the game for a while, they know what's up. I think we're at a good space with them, but still, this secure by design, you think we would have this done, right? Right already. I feel like we should have this a lot better execution from it. So, can you elaborate a little bit on that and what you've been seeing and how you've been tackling that within your organization?
Yes. So you are absolutely right. Shouldn't we have had this all along? And why don't we have it? I think the bigger question also is, why don't we have it? Right? What is this gap? Why can't we just do it secure by design, secure by default? So for that, we have to first understand what it is. Right? It's often mixed with shift left and stuff like that. But what is it? So let's take a step back. It's about building security or baking security in while you're building the system, right? Whether it is software or hardware uh, or infrastructure that software runs on, right? So it's all of the above. Now let's take some examples. So for software, it could be when you're designing or creating, writing the software, you have to plan and think through and say, oh, I need this kind of authentication mechanism, I need multi-factor, I need logging, I need encryption, and all of that. Same thing with infrastructure. When you're putting that infrastructure together, is what are the different for that software to run on? You're saying, okay, what are the different kinds of services I need? I need a gateway, a load balancer. I need of course, the database, maybe serverless, maybe Kubernetes, maybe the and how the firewalls. How do I need a WAF? Do I not need a WAF? So you are making and plus every service itself has its own configuration. You have to make all of these decisions before you deploy that code, right? And so this needs expertise. And gone are those days where cloud was simple. 2006, AWS started with 3 services. Today, there are hundreds of services in each cloud. Complexity has increased dramatically. In less than 20 years, from 2006 to 2025, we have 200 plus services for each cloud. Then we have multi-cloud. And imagine, and cloud is run by today, you built it, you run it. So that's what cloud proposed. And engineers are trying to run this infrastructure. And they are experts in building their cool solutions that we love to use, right? The next cool innovation, it's AI and non-AI, but the next cool stuff. And that's what they love to do as well. But how they're not necessarily the experts. They grapple with expertise in infrastructure and security, and they don't care about it. They don't want to care about it. Can somebody just take care of that for me, is the question. So this multi-dimensional, multi-cloud, multi-dimensional expertise that is required and expected is what is one key factor in not being able to do this very well. But the other factor is they are under immense pressure, right? Take that innovation to market. Just, are we out yet? Is that cool thing available now? Can we start generating revenue quickly? So imagine the pressure to just release functions and features, right? So in that pressure, who's going to think about infrastructure and security and compliance? And nobody wants to think about that. Let's deal with that later. Let's just put it out in the market. Let's see. Let's get those users. Let's get those customers. Start making money. We'll think about security later, right? And that's what makes security by design hard. If we can solve that problem, we can solve security and cybersecurity problem. And then down the pipe, we won't see as many issues if we get it right today. And that's what we are grappling with.
Yeah, I was at a conference recently and a young lady was speaking, and she's a software developer. And she was just basically on stage saying, shift left does not work.
Yes.
And she just stood there like, it does not work.
You
And
bet.
like
It
pause.
doesn't.
And like, I was like, she's making a statement there. But I really did enjoy her concept because we're not even just concept. Like you said, everybody has different pressure or different priorities in their roles, depending on what their roles are. We can't expect our software developers to be security, AppSec security or whatever, right? Or AppSec, excuse me. So like, being able to have tools in place or have oversight or support or whatever to know that let developers do what they do and let security do what they do. And I think that's kind of what you're saying roundabout too, to make sure that we're baking security in and not baking it on, which I love that saying, by the way. It's like so
Yeah.
spot on, right? But that's challenge. I think that is challenging to your point. And CISA puts out, Security by Design guide. I think been a lot of advancement over the years to get software engineer software developers like excited about security, AppSec, DevSec within application development. But yeah, I think you like hit all the important points as to
No,
why they might not be excited too, right?
exactly, exactly. I mean, think about that developer, right? So what is shift left? But what are we confusing? We are confusing the concept of shift left and secure by design. That's first thing we need to kind of understand, right? So shift left is like comes from an engineering concept of doing QA often and QA early, right? Now that concept was expanded to say it's not just QA, it should also include security testing. Okay, so we added that as a part of the application security processes, and that became shift left. What we are doing is now adding one more layer of friction for them for them before it takes, which is why it does not work. Then we adapted that same concept. We said, okay, we are going to create infrastructure as code. So because it is code, we are going to apply the same concept on infrastructure as well and make it shift left for infrastructure. But what that means is somebody is still, those developers still have to write the infrastructure as code. They have to still write the policy as code, which brings us back to the same problem, the friction problem, the expertise problem. We are expecting them to be experts in infrastructure and security. How is that going to work? Right? Under immense pressure. How is that going to work? That is why it doesn't work. So, what is secure by design? First, let's understand. So, that was shift left. So, what is secure by design though? Shift left starts, as you could see, it is scanning of the code. It starts whether it's application code or infra code. It starts after the code is written. Secure by design starts before a single line of code is written. Okay, so now let's look at cloud
Talk
and
about
cloud.
that. Yeah, I want to hear
Yeah, yeah.
that. I'm listening now, girl. I'm listening, Yogi. Tell me, what does that
So
mean?
yes, what does that mean? So what it means is you are planning. It is in the planning phases. Okay. So when you're planning for software, you're planning for, okay, what authentication we need, what encryption we need, what logging we need. That's all software. What infrastructure you're planning, okay, what do I need? Okay, I need a serverless, or I need containers, Kubernetes containers, or I need a web application. I need the database. I need the load balancer. I need the gateway. I need direct connect. What kinds of VPN, WAF, all the services, infrastructure service, secret managers, KMS, key and encryption, what kind of logging. So you need, just for your one single app, you need to build this. So you're diagramming that out. You are architecting that out, that planning. Plus you're talking about each service and the configuration for each of those service and how they work with each other as well. So what we like to call this is from diagram to cloud, not code to cloud. This is the diagramming that happens, the designing, the blueprinting of that infrastructure that happens before you write a single line of code for that infrastructure, right? So that is secure by design. So starting right there, when you think, okay, what does my app need to my for what infra does my app need? It needs all of this to run on. I start diagramming that. That's when you start thinking security. So now the next thing I will address is how do they still get that expertise, right? How do we make it work? How do we cross that barrier of expertise and cross that barrier of still agility, the speed at which they need that? Because that's the pressure we're talking about, the expertise and the agility, right? Speed. That's where smart automation comes in. And that is what we are lacking. Today, we have a broken bridge. The diagrams are drawn in a different tool. Infrastructure as code is happening in a different tool. Then the scanning of that with policy as code is happening in a different tool. Then we have the CSPM happening in a different tool. Then we have CICD, and we are trying to use this broken bridge. We are trying to cobble together. It's only problems, as you can see, even as I'm talking, you're imagining the problem is only getting worse. Where is the solution? Yogi. Right? So that's the smart automation is the only way that we can empower the builders, those who are building that software, to say, just take care of it for me. This I want to this deployed as a serverless app. It's a serverless app. Just, can you build it for me? The whole infrastructure with security baked in. Yeah, that's smart automation. That will take care of the time pressure problem, the agility problem, as well as the security problem. Just happens in the background. That is when we will get security, true security. Because now we are not detecting or even shifting detection left, right? We just shifted detection left and added friction in the whole process.
This makes
By
too much sense, Yogi. This just makes too much sense. Uh, you said cloud diagram to development. Is that what you said? That
Sorry?
did you say cloud diagram to development?
Yes, diagram to
Okay.
cloud. Yes, diagram to
Okay.
cloud. Yeah.
Diagram to cloud. Okay.
Code
I
to
just
cloud.
wanted to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
diagram to cloud. Got it.
Yeah.
Can you share with the audience, is there a specific framework or publication or guidance document out there that you are referencing and that's what you know, your
This is
foundation?
something that we are coming up with. So
Okay.
we have a lot of blog articles on our website, which I can
Yeah.
definitely share with you.
Yeah, share. Where's your
Yeah.
website? Which
Uh,
website?
uh, invigrid.com /insights.
Okay, could you spell that out for folks?
INVIGRID, invigrid.com
Okay.
/insights.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Just so there's
Yeah.
no misunderstanding there. Cause yeah, I just wanna, what you're saying I feel like is out there already, but maybe a fresher twist from your experience from the type of clients that you had and customers, and something that's, really obtainable and makes sense within the industry. Do you work with so tell me a little bit about your company. You provide professional services. How do you share your expertise with the world?
Oh, this kind of conversations that you and I are having, right? This is These kinds of conversations are one way. The Insights blog is another way of sharing this expertise. But to your question on are we a services company? No, it's a product. We are actually building that smart automation which will do the diagram to cloud in minutes for the developers, for the developer community. So they don't have to struggle with infrastructure and security. They just have to say what they want and what kind of app they want to deploy. And that's it. That's how seamless we have made security. So,
Yeah. So you agree that shifting left does not work?
nope,
No.
nope.
Yeah.
We got
Yeah.
to get that
I,
friction
I
out.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And
Yeah.
tools, I think we all need to be careful as somebody who has purchasing power. Shh, don't tell anybody. But, I get it. There's so many tools out there that it is very overwhelming these
Mhm.
days. But at the same time, it's like really, I feel like we're at a great time in history that we have these options. And I think that we should be using automation. We should be using tools to help us make all this make sense and alleviate. Um, the pressure. I like what the pressure on these individuals and just letting
Yeah.
them do what they're supposed to do, what they signed up to do, and be really great at it. Not saying they're not um hip to what security is and what their involvement is, and everybody's has a role in security within an organization. But I completely agree that I think we should be looking at where we can automate and where we can have support tools to help us, and again, baking security in and not on in cloud. But I mean, this concept would certainly apply to other
Yeah.
applications, not necessarily other infrastructure, not necessarily in our cloud or local
Exactly
data
right.
center closet.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one more question before we wrap up. I know, we discussed a lot about governance too. So, as I was hearing you talking, I was as an auditor myself, I was like, well, how do we make sure people are actually doing this? How do we measure, the success of this concept and design or diagram to cloud? How would we be able to present that in a way to show the efficiencies and I think would be interesting to I think it'd be interesting to show kinda like, how it enhanced the process, allowing the developers or other roles to maybe focus more on or proactively look ahead, right? Instead of concentrating on something like security that maybe they're not is not their specialty. But when it comes to governance perspective, like, how do you envision, having a governance in place to be able to provide that, tangible evidence of success, of the metrics to get the buy-in and show, progression.
What a brilliant question, right? Because that's what our boards are going to ask. How are you measuring this? How prove it to me? Right? So so because that is what is governance, right? But let's borrow. We keep talking about cloud governance, AI governance, but are we really using that term correctly? I mean, the origin of that word is corporate governance, right? What is so? Let's apply those principles. And what are those principles? First, having your goals. You just said, what are those KPIs? How do I measure, right? Having those goals, setting your strategy, setting up oversight to measure against those goals. That is corporate and managing risk, right? So that the strategy to make sure that the strategy is actually executed and achieves the goal. That's the risk to the strategy, right? So that that is applying those principles to cloud would be cloud governance. So, for example, your goals with cloud could be agility. Cloud is supposed to give me agility, right? I don't have to wait for the server. I click and I get the server. I'm not waiting for it. That's the value. That's the promise of cloud. Correct? It's somewhere down the line we lost our ways, and we just added so many variety of different tools for a variety of different reasons. I mean, for good reasons like repeatability and all of that. We don't want to do click ops in the console, though we get it very immediately. The satisfaction is immense, but for various reasons, for repeatability purposes, we added, but in the process we lost the agility. We overcomplicated things, and we and in the hands of people who are not necessarily experts and don't have the time. They can become experts but just don't have the time and are under pressure. So we added complexity, we added to the processes instead of keeping that promise of agility, because that agility promise, if we apply that principle, it ties directly with the revenue goals, the corporate goals, which is revenue. If you make it cost efficient, like instead of all of these various tools that require additional expertise for themselves to maintain, if you have a smart tool that does all of it immediately, then you are doing the cost efficiency corporate goal, which is margins, right? So we and misconfigurations too is just one indicator of poor cloud governance. If you look at it very deeply, you will start realizing that, oh, it's a much broader problem of cloud governance, which is escalating costs, right? And the unused assets, non-standard assets, uh, sprawl. Somebody left a crypto mining server, I didn't know. All of that
Can go
increases.
on and on.
We're going to go
Yes.
on and on. So this configuration, all of these security issues are just an indicator of poor cloud governance.
Okay,
So we,
Yogi.
we look at that concept very broadly, apply the broad concepts of governance, and set your goals with agility and cost efficiency and risk mitigation. Together, you get cloud governance, right? So that is what we need to aim for, because that is what is going to help our boards, help our executives. That's when we become enablers of business. And again, back to your very first question, in these times of geopolitical risks and heightened risks, and business uncertainties, even more important than on any regular day. Even on a regular normal day, it's important because again, it's tied to the revenue goals, tied to our margin goals, right? Corporate goals. It's and second largest cost after personnel cost for a lot of companies, especially tech companies, is cloud.
Yes. Thank you, Yogi. You dropped a lot of gems here. I hope y'all were listening to that. Before we break, though, I always like to ask our guests this one question. Yogi, you've had an exceptional career. I'm sure you've been through a lot, or as far as the challenges with clients and learning, and I'm sure a lot of that expertise has helped you be who you are now, and also that you give back as a mentor. So, just curious, if you could start all over again and mentor your 18-year-old self, what was some advice? It doesn't have to be career specifically, but what would be some advice that you would give your 18-year-old self right now?
My goodness gracious, Jessica, that is a hard question. I can answer every technical question, every business question. That is a hard question.
Whatever comes to mind. Don't think too hard about it.
Chill. Like, yeah, I think I work, I guess, way too hard. So, uh, well, yeah, no, really, I think I wouldn't. Uh, I enjoyed my cybersecurity career, right? There were times when I actually felt that I really can't be here. There were times. There were some very serious times where I felt that because of exactly this problem, because how reactive cybersecurity is. And I'm a builder. I'm a builder at heart. Okay, I like to solve problems. I'm a problem solver. So I just going to the CIOs, and I'm a people person, right? So just going to the CIOs and the CTOs with all these misconfigurations and vulnerabilities and begging them to please fix it. And CISOs, we don't build those systems, we don't write those. We detect these issues, and this. I was like, this is not moving the needle on cybersecurity. So the but you know what? If you just look at that final trajectory, and here I am, right? In the field of cybersecurity, building something. So keep going, Yogi. It's all that I would say. Trying to solve a problem, right? I'm bringing the nature of, to use in the field of cybersecurity. But it was cybersecurity that made me realize that that's who I am.
Lovely. I love that about you. I see you as a builder. I feel that vibe from you. Uh, Jill, keep going, keep building. That's what you're telling your 18-year-old self. I love it, Yogi. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. Uh, Thanks everybody for listening. Make sure you check us out next month. You never know what's gonna happen. Thanks, Yogi. Appreciate
Thank you,
you.
Jessica. Same here.
Thank you for tuning in for this month's episode of the CISO Stories podcast. We want to say a special thank you to this month's sponsor, Pantera. Please visit CISOstoriesPodcast.com/Pantera to learn how automated security validation can help you stay ahead of real-world threats. Please subscribe to the CISO Stories podcast and you will receive a new episode on the second Monday of each month.